Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is CraigCrash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott, and we've got a special guest. You've seen him before, Dapper Dan. Welcome everybody in as we've got a good show ready for you guys. We're going to do a Madden cover athlete draft in remembrance of the late head coach. We're also going to do a preview of the college football national championship game at Lucas Oil Stadium between Alabama and Georgia. It's going to be a lot of fun. But guys, first of all, how was your New Year's? How was your holidays? We're back from our hiatus.
You know, holidays were good. New Year's, it was a party. I mean, I think Craig and I, we owned the old neighbor ladies at my parents' house in beer pong. And
Yes.
No, we did not.
Yeah.
She was, for never playing beer pong,
She hustled us.
Yeah, she did.
Geez.
She really
Took all
did.
your money.
Yeah.
Took all of our beer. That's what she did.
Oh, geez. Oh, man. No, pretty good here. No, I had a good New Year's. I think I did stay up until midnight this year. So, I mean, I guess that's a positive. But no, good holidays, good New Year. Glad to start the New Year good.
Yeah. It was a very good holiday season, but we're ready to get back into the podcast and the swing of things here as 2022 is off and running. And of course, the sad news at the end of 2021 was the passing of John Madden on December 28th. He was 85. He did coach the Raiders from 1969 to 1978. He won Super Bowl 11, I believe, from reading my Roman numerals correctly. He was in the broadcast booth from 1979 to 2008. He called games at Fox with Pat Summerall, but I think as we more notably know him as being on Monday Night and Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football with Sunday and Monday with both with Al Michaels. And then, he, of course, I think also he impacted us, probably the most with the Madden football series. That first came out in 1988. And with even all the criticism of the game, because the game has kind of not gone in the greatest direction over the last few years. It's really the only palatable football game on the market right now. I mean, yes, you have, Maximum Football that, Doug Flutie put his name on, not too long ago. You've got, NCAA 14, which, that community is keeping that game going strong. But as far as games go, every year Madden's coming out and they're putting out a product. So we wanted to commemorate that by doing a cover athlete draft. But before we get to that, what is everyone's favorite Madden game? Because for me, what season of Madden? For me, it was Madden 16 because that's the last Madden game that I played where I couldn't wait to get home to play it. And the main reason is first of all, as a broadcaster, I was very excited to always hear Jim Nantz and Phil Simms on that game. They were the broadcasters. It was just nice. The guys they have on there now, which I mean, their names are escaping.
Brandon Gaudin. Charles Davis.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like them as much as I liked.
My sister dated Brandon Gaudin, so I always thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. What a flex. Yeah. And so not only that, but also you could actually pass into single coverage. I don't know if either of you have played some of the recent Madden games, but unless you pass to a guy that's got about a 15-yard bubble around him, you're probably going to get intercepted or the pass is going to get deflected. I always wondered, I was like, why when I throw into single coverage, a 50-50 ball, is it literally never going the 50% that goes my way? Why is it always getting intercepted? And that game introduced some new wide receiver mechanics. Not even sure if those are still in the game, but that was big for me. So that was a game that I would come home from work and I would play it for however long. And, so that's the last game to me that I really enjoyed of Madden 16. I bought, I think, 17 and 18. Actually, I bought through 20, but didn't really play any of those as much. But yeah, Madden 16 for me is probably my favorite of all the Madden games.
Which year was it that you could start just doing an individual player mode?
Are you talking about long shot?
I wouldn't know. I don't really call it. I don't know. Was it long shot? I mean, not like a story mode where,
Okay.
Like they have now, where I'm talking more like where it was you controlled one player and you were free agency, and where you could essentially, if you wanted to, you could start a player. It's probably around 14 or 13 because you could import a player that you created from,
NCAA.
Yeah, big man on campus on NCAA, and it put him right into the draft, and then you could still run that player through an NFL career. I don't remember what year it was.
I know you could do that as far back as 06, I think.
Okay. Well, I was just curious because
I'm not
that was
sure
one of my
exactly the
favorite
first year.
features at the time. But my favorite Madden game was probably, it goes back to 2003. I think that was the first Madden game that I owned, but I really liked that one because it had one of the best teams ever on it. It was the greatest show on turf. The Rams, obviously, Marshall Faulk was the cover, but I mean, if you were playing with that team, you were unbeatable. And it was you had to make deals with your friends. Like, okay, when we're playing each other, nobody can be the Rams. And then you would, to make it a little bit more fair. But that was my favorite just because that team was like really fun to play with because you could just throw it all over the place. And yeah, it was fun. I liked that one. And that was before, it really started getting too crazy.
Right. Yeah. I probably enjoyed that era as well, Brandon. I mean, I think like 03, 04, 05, right around that time. I remember I was actually going into college around that time. So I was real big into NCAA and importing rosters and draft picks from NCAA into the NFL. So I really enjoyed that time. And I think when Vic was on the cover, I really enjoyed, I think that was probably one of the first ones that I owned was when Vic was on the cover. And I mean, if you had him, you didn't even have to throw the ball. You can just snap the ball and just run whatever way you wanted to. But I enjoyed that time. I think right around that time, they got like the hit stick and the truck stick and things like that. And so that always brings back good memories for me.
Yeah, for sure. That was 04, I believe, with Vic. And that was the year that he, I think, broke his leg in the preseason. So, so let's go ahead and get into our cover athlete draft. Speaking of being on the cover, so how it's going to work is it's going to be a snake draft. We're going to do 5 rounds. You have to pick a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a flex, so it can be a running back, wide receiver, or tight end. Because I think there's going to be some left over of all of those, and then a defense. There are exactly 3 defenses, so that's what the great thing is. So as far as quarterbacks go, you can pick from Dante Culpepper, 2002 was when he was on the cover. Michael Vick, who was on the cover of 04. Donovan McNabb, who was on the cover of 2006. Vince Young, who was on the cover of Madden 2008. Brett Favre, who was on the cover of Madden 2009. Drew Brees, who was on the cover of Madden 2011. B. Scott's a Purdue fan, so I'm sure we all know where he's going with that. Tom Brady was on the cover in 2018 and 2022. Patrick Mahomes was on the cover in 2020 and 2022, and Lamar Jackson was on the cover of Madden 2021. As far as running backs go, Eddie George was on the cover in 2001. As B. Scott said, Marshall Faulk was on the cover of 2003. Sean Alexander was on the cover in 2007. Peyton Hillis had that really weird year where he was on the cover in 2012. And then Barry Sanders was on the cover of Madden 2014. Fun fact, that was called Madden 25, not Madden 14. And then you had from wide receivers, you have Larry Fitzgerald, who was on the cover in 2010, Calvin Johnson, who was on the cover in 2013, Odell Beckham Jr., who was on the cover of 2016, and Antonio Brown, who was on the cover of 2019. Then there is only one tight end that ever graced the cover. That's Rob Gronkowski in 2017. And then as far as defenses are concerned, you have Ray Lewis, who will represent the Ravens defense. That was 2005. Troy Polamalu, who represents the Steelers in 2010, and then Richard Sherman, who represents the Seahawks in 2015. So it is going to be a snake draft, so whoever has the third pick will pick in the first and the second round, and so on and so forth. So anybody have a preference on first pick? I was going to go Cards Against Humanity rules, and whoever pooped last gets to go first. But it's just kind of what you guys want to do. We didn't really discuss this in the pre-show production aspect of things.
Craig, I guess since you're running the show, who is the top box on
who's number one here?
A lot of pressure for me, but I'm gonna go ahead and go. I'll go ahead and go first then. All right. So first pick of the draft for me, and it may be controversial at 1-1, but I think as far as value goes, there's only 4 of these position in the draft. And so I think it's good to go ahead and lock up your number 1. And because he's the cover of my favorite version of the game, or at least the most recent version of the game that I actually like enjoyed and played a ton of, I'm gonna go with OBJ. On the cover of 2016.
Oh.
That is my 1-1. Only 4 wide receivers in the draft. Remember that. So
That's who you took first.
yes,
And-
Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, hey, look, when you make a draft, you have to go with your heart, and you have to take who you don't think is going to come back to you. I know that, and remember, I don't have a pick again until the end of the second round, so I didn't know if OBJ would last that long. So I'm going Odell Beckham Jr. Of course, graces the cover after that incredible catch against the Cowboys. I think that was that on a Sunday night game? I think.
I think so. I think Madden was calling it.
Wouldn't have been in.
No.
Well, maybe wouldn't have been in 14. Maybe.
I know.
No, that would have been Collinsworth, because Collinsworth, I think, called Sunday night like when we were still in college. So, yeah. But anyway, I mean, yeah,
So I probably had it on mute.
And remember, I mean, this is prime OBJ. This isn't current OBJ. So I mean, that still warrants some. I know maybe not obviously not everyone's 1-1, but I think it's still solid 1-1.
I feel like we should get a good Chris Collinsworth impersonator on here and recall that catch for us. All right, so who's 2 on your screen? Since you're keeping track of this, am I 2?
Oh, I'm the second person on my screen if we're going like 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 1.
Okay.
So
we'll let you go second then.
Yeah, B-Sky, you can go second.
All right, well, as Craig said, I'm a homer. We all know that. So my number 1 pick, I'm going with a quarterback. I'm going to go with one of the all-time leading quarterbacks in the NFL. Until Tom Brady's already passed him, because Tom Brady's never going to retire. But I'm going with Drew Brees from 2011. He had a great year that season, and when I look at some of my favorite games, Drew Brees is right there. I remember playing with Drew Brees. I think it was back in, I want to say like 04 or 05. I would change up the depth chart with the San Diego Chargers and have Drew Brees as my. Oh no, it was much earlier than that then, because he was on his way to the Saints at that point. But yeah, right when he first started his career in the NFL, I would change up the depth chart with the Chargers, so that way he would be the quarterback.
Good pick. All right, so you guys both picked guys that weren't even on my top 3 at either of their positions.
I thought you were going to say you're on your board, and I was like, we all have the same board.
Yeah.
How are you? I'm going to take.
They're not even on my board. I don't even know where you guys got those dudes from, but yeah, not even on my board. But yeah, OBJ. I thought a lot about OBJ. I mean, he had 3 fantastic seasons starting off, but I wasn't so sure about picking him. He is actually 4th on my wide receiver list, but no, I was going to go. You guys went wide receiver and QB, so I'm going to go ahead and throw a running back out there. I'm going to go the guy that they picked after 25 years of Madden here. So I'm going to go with Barry Sanders and lock him in as my running back there. I mean, he had the 2K season, 2,000 rushing yards in a season, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then also, I mean, he only played 10 seasons. He kind of went out on top. I mean, he kind of quit before the wheels fell off. So, but no, I'm going to go with Barry Sanders. He's going to be my running back.
All right, perfect. You get the first pick around 2.
And
Barry Sanders is not a very friendly person, just FYI.
Yeah, FYI. Okay.
Especially when you have a friend that is with you and you're seeing him, and your friend calls him Gale Sayers.
Ooh, yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
Oh geez. That'll do it. I'll make a mental note to never call him Gale Sayers to his face. So
that's only behind his back.
Only behind his back.
You know who that guy is? Gale Sayers.
Gale Sayers.
That wasn't Barry Sanders.
Oh gosh. Oh man. So RB round 1, and then I'll go for QB. Actually, probably my favorite player to play was Michael Vick. So I'll go Michael Vick round 2, pick 1, cover of the year 04. I was just looking up stuff. He has like over 6,000 rushing yards in his career, 7 yards per carry. I don't know. I mean, if you ran him on every single down in Madden, you could probably get like 25 yards per carry just in the game. So that's my second pick right there.
So for my second pick, I'm going wide receiver, and this is the guy I thought Craig was going to pick when he was talking about a wide receiver in the first round. I'm going with Calvin Johnson. I mean, can you imagine the type of numbers that Calvin Johnson and Drew Brees would put up together? Wow. I mean, that's yeah. It had to be one heck of a duo. I mean, think about it. Calvin Johnson put up like Hall of Fame type numbers with Matthew Stafford as his quarterback. Just think of what he could do with a Drew Brees.
Right. Oh, yeah. He's the only, I think he's the only person on this list that I've actually seen live. I actually saw Calvin Johnson when he played for Georgia Tech at a bowl game, when he played up against West Virginia. And I think he had like 53 catches, like 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns in that game. It was pretty crazy.
Seen Drew Brees live?
No, Calvin Johnson. I saw Calvin Johnson. Yeah, he was pretty crazy against West Virginia.
All right, so I've got 2 picks in a row here, so I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit more close to the vest with this selection. And I'm going to go with my running back. I'm going to go ahead and nab Marshall Faulk, one of my favorite players. Have one of it's weird. I don't think the Rams ever wore this jersey, but I have them, or I used to have. It doesn't fit me anymore. But a gold Rams number 28 Marshall Faulk jersey, so that's pretty cool. You know, again, like you said, B. Scott, you had like an agreement with your friends to not use the Rams, just, you know, an electric player, and then also played for the Colts at one point. So that's pretty cool too. So, you know, just was a special running back to watch. And so I'm going to go Marshall Faulk with the last pick of the second round. And then I guess I'll go quarterback here. I was thinking about I'll go ahead and nab my flex here just because I want the I want to have a specific player on my team, but we'll see if he drops to me again in the last 2 picks of the draft. But I'm going to go ahead and get my quarterback here, and I'm going to go ahead and get Lamar Jackson. The reason why I want Lamar Jackson is because whenever I've played Madden, or even when I played college football, my favorite thing to do is to call a 4 verticals, so everyone runs go routes, and then I roll my quarterback to one direction or the other, and if there's a wide open receiver, then I'll throw it, or I'll just tuck it and run because the AI is thinking pass, so that you can just tuck it and run, 20, 25 yards like you were saying about Vic, Dan. So yeah, that's always a lot of fun. So I thought about, if I didn't, there was other quarterbacks I considered. I thought about Donovan McNabb since I don't know. That's one of the first Madden games I remember playing. I enjoyed, playing, with Donovan McNabb. I thought about him too. I thought about Patrick Mahomes too, but he's on 20 and 22, and I didn't really play either of those games that often. So I'm going to go ahead and, even though I didn't play 21 either, but that's beside the point. I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson and put him on the team.
No Tom Brady selected, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game.
True.
It's kind of surprising.
But like, it's just
or is that Drew Brees? Yes.
Well, it's fun to play with guys like Jackson, Mahomes, guys that have mobility, because you do so much more, I feel like.
Yeah, I always loved a mobile quarterback in Madden. I didn't matter who it was, like who's even if you could have Tom Brady, I'd always pick a mobile quarterback.
Oh yeah. All right, B. Scott, you're up.
No, Craig, it's you again.
I made my 2 picks.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Were you not listening, Brandon? Did you doze off?
I'm following along with the board as it's being updated.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wasn't updating it because I was talking, so it'll be updated now.
So,
yeah,
you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take my flex player because I have a feeling this is who Craig was going after.
Yeah.
And I am taking Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
With my pick in the 3rd round. I mean, just the athleticism for a tight end, the strength, the size, pairing him along with Calvin Johnson, with Drew Brees throwing to both of them. Good luck covering that.
Man, you guys are you pick my flex there. Am I next here?
Yeah, you're next.
Okay, all right. I'll run defense there. Kind of the obvious choice if anybody knows me. I'm gonna go be a homer here and pick Troy Polamalu as my defender here. Big Pittsburgh fan growing up around that area. So I mean, he could do it all. He's kind of like a bit of a linebacker. He played close to the line of scrimmage there for a long time, and then later on in his career, it seemed like he kind of played a little bit further back. Was more a cover safety, but could do it all. I think the thing that sticks in my mind is him just leaping over the line and like blocking field goals or sacking quarterbacks. I like seeing him do that all the time. But yeah, going to go with Troy Polamalu for my defender.
And then
I get 2 picks in a row?
Yeah, you get the first pick of the
Goodness
fourth round.
gracious.
I know.
All right, first pick of the fourth round. All right. I'm going to go with, let me see here. What was I going to go with? Oh, for flex, I was going to go with Eddie George. You guys picked a couple of my flex there, but I'll go with Eddie George. He didn't have a great career yards per carry, but I'm going to go with Eddie George as my backup running back there. He had, pretty good overall career. Plus, is one of the earlier Maddens where they had a cover athlete there. So go with Eddie George for my flex position.
So for me, I need to pick a running back, and my running back was just picked.
Oh, geez.
So
you have wait, never mind. Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you had.
I do not have a running back. This is a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with Sean Alexander. Okay. Because Sean Alexander wasn't just a good running back. He just was a good teammate. People love playing with him. I think if it wasn't for him, I don't think the Seahawks would have made a Super Bowl back. Oh, gosh, what year was it? Like
2005, I think, or 6 against the Steelers.
Yeah, against the Steelers in Detroit, where, I mean, they were completely outmatched in that game. But, he was just one of those guys you could always root for. And you got to have a guy like that on your team, especially when to level things out with Rob Gronkowski.
Speaking of that Super Bowl against the Steelers, that was Ben Roethlisberger's first Super Bowl. Oh, no. Dan, you have any reaction? What was your thoughts last night during Roethlisberger's last game?
Oh yeah. So fortunately was able to watch the whole game. Yeah, I mean it was good. It was a good final game. I mean I hope that they somehow sneak into the playoffs, but I think that would have to be at the expense of the Colts if that were to happen. But no, it was good watching Ben. I mean, he's been, basically my quarterback for 18 years now, I think. But I mean, went through some Neil O'Donnell years, Cordell Stewart years, Mike Tomczak years. So fortunate to have some good teams over the years. But no, with Ben Roethlisberger, he's definitely the best quarterback I've been able to watch with the Steelers, and it was fun. It was fun watching him win the game. I mean, he was definitely being pretty emotional there for a while. And then all of a sudden it looked like, oh, maybe this game's going to be a little bit closer than what we thought towards the end, but they were able to sneak it out. Najee Harris with that big run towards the end was kind of the nail in the coffin. So, but it was good. I enjoyed the game. We're definitely going to miss them. And I think we're going to probably have about 10 years of mediocrity here now.
Surprised no Tommy Maddox.
Tommy Maddox. Yeah.
That was the kind of random. Yeah, like one season as starter, or did he just start 2 games before Roethlisberger started?
Yeah, he had one season where they were basically like an air raid offense, and I mean they were just kind of throwing it like crazy. And then he got hurt, I think, game 2 of Roethlisberger's rookie season. Roethlisberger lost that game against the Ravens, but after that he won 14 games. So I think they went like 14-2 that year, or 15-1 that year, and went to the AFC Championship game and lost against the Patriots, I think.
Yeah. All right. I've got 2 back-to-back picks here, my final 2 picks of the draft. So I can lock up my flex and I can lock up my defense. And I'm going to go defense first. I'm going to go with the Ravens defense, because with Ray Lewis, mostly because I think Madden 2005 was the first version of Madden where they introduced I don't even know what you would call it, if it's technically a mechanic or what you would call it, but where if you hit a player hard enough, their helmet would fly off. Okay. And that was like pretty cool.
Stick, right?
Right, yeah. So that was pretty cool. I know that those kind of hits are taboo now, and that kind of, but it was kind of a emblem of the times, of that. And plus Ray Lewis, just one of the greatest, linebackers that at least we've seen during our time, which was pretty cool. I know, made, seasons not great for Dan at times. But But yeah, I'm going with Ray Lewis, the Ravens, as my defense. And then final pick, I need a flex. So I've got, let's see, there's one wide receiver on the board. B. Scott, you've got your wide receiver, don't you? Or do
Yep.
you? Yep, you've got your wide
I just
receiver,
need
Calvin Johnson.
defense.
Yeah, you need your defense. So
There's only one defense.
True. So you're kind of pigeonholed into your last pick here. So my pick, because the only running back left is Peyton Hillis, I'm going to go wide receiver, and I'm going to go with Larry Fitzgerald. Just one of my favorite players, one of those guys that, it doesn't matter like what team is your favorite team. That's one of the players that you idolize and root for. Unfortunate he wasn't able to ever get a Super Bowl. Made it to the Super Bowl, I think, in Super Bowl 43 against the Steelers, where the Cardinals almost won that one. Larry Fitzgerald, one of my favorite players, and that's how I'll finish out the draft.
So I don't have much of an option, but it's okay because this was actually the defense I was going to go with. I'm going with Richard Sherman and the Seahawks defense from 2015, the Legion of Boom. And yeah, I'm glad this one was the one that was the only one was available, because this is definitely the one I was going to take. It was a fun defense to watch. They just flew all over the field. I honestly, they really made Peyton Manning look really bad in a Super Bowl. And that's really not easy to do, to make Peyton Manning look as bad as he did in that game. I think that's a good final pick to be able to get the Legion of Boom.
Oh yeah.
And no Antonio Brown, Craig?
No,
you don't want somebody that's going to quit on you in the second quarter?
No, I would prefer. Hey, you know what? He did leave us with a pretty good meme, which was every day is a half day if you just leave early. That's
Or
those
the
are words
other one I heard. All we wanted from 2022 was just a little bit of normalcy. Here's January 2nd, and there's Antonio Brown dancing at the end zone, half naked.
Right.
Yep. Okay, I have to know, is the picture somebody posted that looks like him standing outside the stadium waiting for an Uber, is that a legitimate picture?
I don't know.
Because I know he didn't go far, because he stayed within the area because he was at the Nets game last night.
Yeah,
sitting courtside.
I have no idea. All I've seen is a TikTok of like his Uber driver, and not even 100% sure if that's real. So I have no idea what happened.
Yeah, I just heard.
I was gonna say I was hoping we'd find some cell phone like footage of like the fight that like took place, like the whole reason why that whole thing happened, or like the argument or something. That's what I've been waiting for.
There is like Mike Evans trying to calm him down.
Right.
Is there that footage? But there wasn't really much of a fight. It was just he thought he was too injured to go back in. Bruce Arians wanted him to go back in. He said, "No, I'm not going back in." So Bruce Arians told him to leave.
Yeah, I've heard mixed reports though. Is that the official one? Because I've also heard that like he had some incentives on the line and they weren't playing him because.
Oh yeah, he had. I think the incentives that were on the line. I mean, he was being asked to go back in the game and he said no. So it's like, okay, is he passing up on these incentives, or is it true that they weren't playing him so he wouldn't hit those incentives?
Right.
I don't know. I don't think we will ever truly know.
No. Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of different stories going around, but I mean, he's just, unfortunately, he's, gone through a lot of things. It seems like there's, some issues, unresolved issues there. And it's like, I mean, the last, 4 teams he's been with, he hasn't finished the season with them. So it's kind of like, yeah, there's always something going on there. But and I heard something like he was trying to get a ride to the airport, but then didn't have his ID and stuff like that with him. So so that's why he was sticking around, didn't have like his wallet. And so, I mean, there's a bunch of stories. It's just kind of hard to tell what's going on, but it's just kind of a sad end, if it is the end for his career, that kind of went that way. I mean, he had some pretty great seasons with the Steelers, but unfortunately that had to end as well.
I mean, Craig, didn't we get to see him up close and personal?
I don't think he was. Maybe we did. I think
it was right at the end of his.
Probably, yeah.
Oh no, I think I did at Purdue.
Yeah,
because they always, yeah. I think
it was just after we left, or maybe he was
Central Michigan, right?
Yeah,
he went to Central Michigan.
Yeah, because there was a season it was Dan Lefevre was his quarterback, and Purdue played Central Michigan 3 times within 1 calendar year. They started the year off, they played them in a bowl game, then they started again the next season. And I remember the bowl game.
He got a personal foul for taunting or something in the bowl game. I remember that because whenever they drafted him, I remember actually watching that bowl game.
And I think that was the bowl game that Purdue won on like a late last second field goal.
Yeah.
Too. Because it was a back and forth game because Purdue just couldn't stop them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why the Colts drafted Dan Lefevre for a while. Had him on the roster for a while.
I was gonna say, I think I have a final pick, right?
Yeah, you do have the last pick, and you have the only player that you can take is
Antonio Brown,
right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So after looking at all my choices here, I think I'm going to go with AB, Antonio Brown. I think he'll be a great addition to the team. Look forward to him being with us
for half a season,
5 seasons.
Yeah,
and we'll see how things turn out.
All right, so that concludes it. Here's the players still left on the board: Peyton Hillis, and then a lot of quarterbacks. That's why I almost didn't take a quarterback until the last round because I was like, there's 11 of them. Culpepper, McNabb, Young, Favre, Brady. No Patrick Mahomes, and then Peyton Hillis. So Peyton Hillis
because
is feeling
nobody wants to deal with Pat Mahomes' wife or his brother.
True.
Rather would deal with AB.
So my picks were OBJ, Marshall Faulk, Lamar Jackson, the Ravens defense, and Larry Fitzgerald. B. Scott's picks were Drew Brees, Calvin Johnson, Rob Gronkowski, Sean Alexander, and the Seahawks defense. And then Dan had Barry Sanders. He had Michael Vick. He had the Steelers defense, Eddie George, and Antonio Brown. So not too bad. A lot of great athletes, a lot of great memories with those Madden games. All right, well, that will do it for the first half here. We're going to get into our sponsors. But before we do, Dan, before you head out, go ahead and plug yourself a little bit. I know you streamed earlier tonight at twitch.tv/Dapper Dan. So go ahead and plug all your socials, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube. It's Dapper Dan WV. Big West Virginia University fan, so Dapper Dan WV. And stream a little bit, but mostly just here to support others, and just grateful to be on the podcast here. So thanks, Craig. Thanks, B. Scott. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for joining us. All right, so let's go ahead and hear about our friends of the show. First of all, from Anchor, I'm a little rusty on this. I gotta remember how all this is done. So Anchor. They are a platform that allows us to put on the podcast every week. It's a really great website if you are trying to get into podcasting, because what you can do, you can either do what we do, which is record your podcast externally and then re-upload it to the site, or you can record right to the site. You get an opportunity to monetize really quickly because they offer you the ability to do an Anchor sponsorship right away, so you do make some money on that, so that's nice. And then Anchor does distribute your podcast to a lot of different platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, a bunch of different sites. So it's a really good website to use. I would definitely recommend. Also, the podcast is brought to you by Eat Lunch and Board Game. That's a podcast done by my cousin Adam. He has his own board game company, and so he has a guest on every week. He's a big supporter of our podcast, so we want to share the love as well. So if you're into gaming, go check out Eat Lunch and Board Game. That releases, I believe, on a weekly basis as well, so go ahead and check that out. And then remember, you can follow us at 3C Media Sports on Twitter. Go like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go to our YouTube channel, 3C Media, over there. We've got some content on the way on that side of things. So make sure you're locked in there. 3C Media on TikTok. If you want to see some exclusive content, that's where you can find us over there. Come to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CraigCrash. We record every single Tuesday so that we can release on Wednesday. So we want to be able to participate with you guys, have your guys' comments. We've had a few people in the chat. Dusty's in here. He talks about how it's the last Madden game he played was with Vic on the cover. That was a lot of fun, in that season. We also have SD Hughes who is here, and then of course Dan saying GG's as he's on the way out. We want to thank him again for giving us some of his time here on a Tuesday night. So thank you for stopping by. And then also remember that you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course podcast. So before we get out of here, we're gonna do a preview of the college football national championship game, which is of course next Monday night.
Going to be so good.
I mean, I'm actually, I've thought about it today, and I was like, I think the game itself is gonna be pretty good. I think. I don't know. Now, granted, B. Scott, you as you so eloquently pointed out when we were together on New Year's Eve, I also said Michigan and Georgia was gonna be good. So we we know how that one turned out. So first of all, yeah, let's real quick kind of take a look back at those semifinal games. Not a ton to say about them because they were both relatively lopsided. First, you had Alabama versus Cincinnati. Bryce Young got the scoring off started there when he connected with Slade Bolden for an 8-yard touchdown pass. He then later finds Ja'Cory Brooks for a 44-yard touchdown pass. It was 17-3 tied at the half, 17-6 Bama heading into the fourth. Bryce Young's third touchdown pass, this time to Cameron Latou, puts the game away. 27-6 is the final as Alabama advances to, I believe, their 9th national championship game under Nick Saban. Some of the stats on the game: Bryce Young went 17 for 28 with 181 yards and 3 touchdowns. Brian Robertson Jr. Had 26 carries for 204 yards for Alabama. Then the nightcap on New Year's Eve was Georgia and Michigan. Georgia wins 34-11. Stetson Bennett finds Brock Bowers for a 9-yard touchdown pass. Kenny McIntosh connects with Adonai Mitchell on a trick play to put the Dogs up 14-0. And then Bennett hits Jermaine Burton for a 57-yard touchdown. It was 27-3 Georgia at halftime. Each team, I think that's when you and I kind of gave up on the game, B. Scott.
Yeah, that's when we headed out to the garage and.
Yeah. And then each team got a touchdown in garbage time, which gives us the 34-11 final score. Stats on this one: Stetson Bennett, 20 for 30 for 313 yards, 3 touchdowns. James Cook had 4 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown for Georgia. Reaction to this first round of games. I mean, Alabama versus Cincy was what we expected. Cincinnati couldn't get going offensively. They were 2 of 15 on 3rd and 4th down. Alabama doubled their first down output, 27-13. Cincinnati also had 5 3-and-outs and only 2 plays of 20 or more yards. But the defense played really well. So I think if we were looking at maybe a offense like one of UCF's offenses from their past few runs into the top 5, or if we were looking at maybe an offense like maybe back in the day with Boise State and this defense. Now I know that's a big ask because those are like best of the best group of 5 offense on a best of defense as well, but I think if they did have a little bit of a better offense, I think they're in better shape.
Yeah, totally. I definitely agree with that statement. I mean, that defense is what led him through the entire season anyways.
Right.
I'm not surprised about this outcome, but I mean, it's just what Alabama does. They just punch you and punch you and punch you and punch you and punch you again. And you think, okay, I can get back up. And no, they just boom again. And it's relentless. And I think, Cincinnati did, I think, an admirable job of trying, and they looked like, I'll just say this, they looked like they belonged in the playoff 4 more than Michigan did.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they were the lone undefeated team until that game, but good for Cincinnati. I mean, they'll be back. I think Cincinnati will be back. I mean, I don't see Luke Fickell going anywhere anytime soon now that Notre Dame job's filled. But he's got himself a good team down there, and how he just needs to. He's got the defense. He's a defensive guy, anyways. So he's got the defense dialed in. Now it's time to work on that offense, and I think he can, but I'm not surprised about the outcome either.
Yeah, Alabama did dominate on the ground as well, 301 rushing yards, which was insane to 74 from Cincinnati.
Their running backs are just like, where do you find these guys? Like, did you just like recruit a linebacker and turn him into a running back or something? I mean, it's unreal where these running backs that they have.
Right.
I mean, you think you have a good running back, and then all of a sudden you see Alabama's, and it's just like, oh.
Well, and they're all like, I mean, yeah, they've had a few, just kind of your run-of-the-mill running backs like a TJ Yeldon, but they've also had like Najee Harris, Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, guys who are physical runners that, I remember watching, like game day and stuff when they would show all the highlights of Mark Ingram's like yards after contact, where he would get hit and then he would still get like 13 more yards after he would get hit initially.
Like, Mark Ingram, like, he was a good running back, but he looked like a running back. I'm talking about the guys like Derrick Henry when he's standing next to Mark Ingram and he's like 3 feet taller than him. And it's just like, I didn't know like running backs could look like that, to be honest. And they all seem to go to Alabama. I don't know. So it's just like every year they have somebody there at running back. Yeah, you're right. They've had a few where it's just like, but they were still really good at Alabama. They just got to the NFL and they were like, I played at Alabama. I'm good. And they're like, no,
actually, no,
you got to keep it up. You actually got to work up here. And yeah, obviously it was Eddie Lacy. That's the guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Where's Glenn Coffey at right now? But the one final thought on Cincinnati, Alabama, I do think like because we agree that Cincinnati played well, and did the group of five a favor. They played a decent game. They just didn't get it going offensively. But I do think the bar has been raised for the next group of five. As far as like, I think if a team, let's say, Cincinnati does the identical thing that they did this past year. Now, I'm sure they'll be highly ranked again, but I'm sure their offensive production will be even more scrutinized. Because if they go in with similar numbers to this year, then the committee may not be as eager to rank them highly because they may be a team that's like Notre Dame, like Oklahoma State, who were kind of waiting in the wings on the outside looking in. So if a team loses on the last weekend, okay, fine, we'll put Cincinnati in again. But again, I think that they've earned that. I think they're going to be in that position again. But I think if they don't put together, if we don't see teams putting out better wins and stuff like that, because I mean there were games towards the end of the season for Cincinnati, like the Tulane one jumps out to mind, where they didn't really play all that great. They still won, and that was really all that that mattered at the time, was win every game, because that's the baseline of what you have to do. But I think in the future, the committee is going to want a team that's got a little bit more style points, offensively. Not to say, I mean, again, they played Alabama, so it's not like they played a pushover, obviously, in the college football playoff, and they made it there. But and there's not many teams that have not been blown out by Alabama in the playoff. But at the same time, I think that's going to be something that the committee looks at going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as long as they look if they make it back and they look competitive in it, I don't think they could be blackballed.
Oh no.
I don't think. I think if there's a blacklist of teams that are like, yeah, we're going to try to avoid you at all costs, and Notre Dame headlines that list right now. But Cincinnati's definitely going to be more highly scrutinized going forward, because you do want the game to be even a little bit more competitive than it was.
Yeah, I'm saying
the Big Ten's going to be heavily scrutinized if it's not Ohio State,
right?
Because anytime it's not Ohio State, wow, the Big Ten just looks awful.
Yeah,
and especially if you're a team from Michigan and you just fail to show up.
Because that's Michigan State too. They got blown out by Alabama in their one trip as well. So, and speaking of Georgia, Michigan, I was like, I do have something to say on that, in that game as well. Because like you said, Michigan did not show up for the game against Georgia.
They had a player saying, we'll be back. I'm like,
I don't know.
I don't know, buddy. I mean, Ohio State's only going to get better. They were young, very, very young this year. They're
Right.
only going to get better. Good luck.
Right. They went into this game averaging 214 yards on the ground this season. They were first in the Big Ten, only 91 yards in the Orange Bowl. You remember the game against Ohio State where Hassan Haskins really thrived. He only had 39 yards, which was his lowest output of the season. And then Stetson Bennett has really come into his own the last couple of games. Second game with 300 yards or more passing, and then the third straight game with 3 touchdowns or more. And he just had, before this stretch, 2 games of 300 yards or more. I do think, however, it is a little bit of an overreaction to say Michigan didn't belong in the playoff. I know you didn't say that, but I saw a lot of tweets that were like, oh, well, this is why Michigan shouldn't have been there. It's like, okay, first of all.
Who else were you going to put in?
Right, exactly. Because, I mean.
Notre Dame,
they lost to Oklahoma State and has that, long history of not playing well at the college football playoff for bowl games in general. And then I think, 6 and 7, that's what you had with Baylor and Ole Miss. I don't think either of those teams really, they played each other.
Not putting 3 SEC teams in.
Right. And then Baylor didn't, look
Ohio
great.
State, but they were a 2-loss team.
Yeah, Ohio State lost to Michigan. The only team that I kind of wished was in the playoffs was Utah, and they didn't. They lost 3 games. So it's not like they were knocking on the door and the committee just overlooked them. They just lost to San Diego State and BYU and or Arizona or whoever they lost to early in the season.
They won the games they needed to win to get to the Rose Bowl, and that was it.
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't a playoff caliber record.
Right. So, but they were playing their best football at the end, which is why I was like, if there's any team that can say, oh, man, I wish we had an expanded playoff so we could see these teams, that Utah is that team. So I think, Michigan definitely, did what they needed to do to get there. I just, it just stinks that they didn't. And you're absolutely right. Now that we've seen other teams like Michigan and Michigan State get blown out, that just makes it even harder if you're not Ohio State to get in. It's going to almost turn into what it is in the ACC currently with Clemson and
Clemson or bust for the ACC.
Right.
Same thing with the Big 12. Oklahoma or bust.
Right.
Not for long, though.
No, not for long.
Nobody's getting in from the Big 12 in the future.
The Big 12 will be the Pac-12 going forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say about Georgia and Michigan?
No. It's just that was – I thought that was going to be a better game.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Michigan's defense was going to rise to the occasion because Georgia's offense truly, it just isn't that good of an offense. It's a good offense, but it's just, it's not like an Alabama offense.
Right.
But so I thought Michigan at least had a fighter's chance in that one. But
yeah, nope. Heck, we thought they were going to be in the national championship contending with Alabama, but
yeah. Well, if you would have thought that the way they looked in the last 2 weeks of the season, ever since that Michigan State loss for them, they looked really, really good. But I don't know. They choked, in my opinion.
They really did. So moving on to the national championship game coming up this next Monday, number 1, Alabama against number 3, Georgia. And so first of all, we're going to do a key to the game and then get to our predictions. For me, key to the game is going to be the Bulldogs secondary. The Dogs defense held Alabama in check in the national championship game as far as their running game is concerned, allowing 115 yards, just kind of like what they did against Michigan. But Bryce Young was the difference maker. He went 26 for 44 with 421 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Georgia defense that was ranked first going into that meeting. It was just the second time Young has passed for 400-plus yards, and the 536 yards allowed by Georgia was the highest the Dogs had allowed all season. So I think if the secondary for Georgia can find a way to disrupt what Bryce Young does passing, if they can, even force an interception or two, because also Alabama didn't turn the ball over. And whenever you are Alabama and have the Heisman winning quarterback and you don't turn the ball over, you're going to more than likely win the game. And so I think if, because we've seen, like I said, Stetson Bennett's coming into his own over the past, few weeks. The offense for Georgia is coming alive a little bit more than maybe they were earlier on in the season when all they had to do was, rely on their defense to just, ransack the opponent. So I really think if that secondary for Georgia can, come alive, make some interceptions, get some deflections, disrupt the passing lanes of Bryce Young, then I think Georgia has a fighting chance.
See, yeah, I agree. It starts with the defense. I'm not just going to put it on one unit on the defense. I'm going to put it on the entire defense. That defense just needs to play smash mouth football. They need to punch. They need to take the punches that Alabama gives and punch right back. And that's when Alabama really gets off their game, is when somebody, just doesn't take the punches, when somebody starts swinging haymakers right back at them. So this defense needs to bow up. They need to play like they did throughout the year. They need to really take it right to Alabama. I think now they know what to expect from this Alabama offense, and they're not going to be too intimidated by it. I don't know if they were intimidated the first time or what it was, but they just need to play the way they know how to play and not get folded over, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. Now on to the prediction. And I do, I do want to say this, and I mentioned it already a little bit earlier, but these are the two best teams in the country. I think, I think this national championship game, as much as we, see an all SEC national championship and we roll our eyes and we're like, oh, of course, it's the SEC. I think this is one of those years where we do actually get the top two teams, in the country. I mean, last year, especially, so last year, I'm hoping we don't get a repeat of last year where it's just, Alabama rolling over whoever they play. I think this is even a better matchup than the last time we got an all SEC national championship, or even the last time
that was a good game. That was a good game the last time these two teams played for a national championship a few years ago.
Well, and that one, though, didn't feel right in the sense that, like, Georgia won the SEC and Alabama didn't even play in the SEC championship game.
That's right.
And then in 2012, the last time we saw two SEC teams, or in the BCS, the last time before the last time, the second to last time, the same deal where Alabama, did
LSU
and LSU. Alabama didn't play for their BCS, or sorry, they didn't play for the SEC championship game that year either. So Alabama won both those games. That was just kind of like, that's kind of fluky and weird, because you shouldn't really have, if it were any other conference, you wouldn't have been in, but because it's the SEC, you're in, and because you're Alabama. But this year, it really does feel like Alabama and Georgia were the best two teams all year. Alabama won the SEC championship game, so now, we'll see what they can do this time around. I did look it up in bowl games that were rematches of the regular season, which I don't know. It's when you look on ESPN, the championship weekend is technically in the regular season, but when I think championship game, I think postseason. So I don't know what that technically falls under. But in bowl games that were rematches of regular season games, the team that lost the first game is 15-7. That includes 2012 when Bama lost to LSU, but beat the Tigers in the national championship game. Like I said, Stetson Bennett is coming into his own. Over the last couple of games, he's completing 63% of his passes for 653 yards and 6 touchdowns with just 2 picks over the last 2 games. The last 2 games are his best 2 in terms of yardage, but you knew the butt was coming. Alabama is 6-2 in national championship games under Nick Saban, and you start to think, okay, 6-2. Who are his 2 losses to? Who are the quarterbacks? We just talked about Stetson Bennett. Who are the quarterbacks that he lost to? Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. So I don't really know if Stetson Bennett can put his name up there with those guys. It's kind of like when the Patriots make it to the Super Bowl. I know we've made this analogy a couple times, but I don't want to bet against Nick Saban, especially equipped with the Heisman winner in Bryce Young. So I'm going to go Alabama, even though this matchup, I think, is both these teams are good enough. It's not, Georgia just happened to ride the number 1 wave all season and kind of just backed into the playoff. Like, they're a legitimate team. And legitimately, in my opinion, the second best team in the country. Alabama right now, legitimately the first best team in the country. You would think when you have 2 teams that match up this well or match up this closely in terms of, statistics, that, okay, well, one team's not going to sweep, like they're going to split. And that's like kind of what you would think would give Georgia a little bit more of the edge. But again, I just can't bet against Nick Saban.
Yeah, that's I agree. You can't bet against him. And like I've heard somebody put it best, in order to beat Alabama, you have to have an elite quarterback. Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence were elite college quarterbacks. I mean, Deshaun Watson is a good NFL quarterback. He's just gotten himself into some trouble off the field.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Lawrence, he's only a rookie. He's playing for a horrible team.
Yeah.
So we can't say anything.
And for half the season was playing for a horrible coach. So
right. So that Stetson Bennett, he's coming into his own and everything. Stetson Bennett is not an elite quarterback, unfortunately. So I really do hope this is a good game. I really do, just mostly for the sake of Indianapolis, because, when we hosted the Super Bowl, it was a really good game. We just need a good game for Indianapolis to really put on a good show. And, but it's Alabama. Let's just be honest. Alabama's going to win this thing. I don't want to say it, but I feel like Alabama could win this thing by 2 to 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. That's why I'm like kind of crossing my fingers where I'm like, please at least be a good game. Like, at least be, because that's the thing too. We talked about the semifinals always being blowouts. National championship games a few times have been blowouts too. We had,
the very first one was Ohio State just ran roughshod on Oregon.
Yeah, Ohio State beat blew out Oregon. We got a close game. Wasn't the first Alabama Clemson game overtime? Wasn't that? I know it was close, but the first two with Deshaun Watson and Alabama were close. I can't remember if it was overtime or not, but
I think the year that they won finally,
right?
The year with Deshaun Watson winning, that one was overtime,
right? Because that was Hunter Renfrow in the end zone, wasn't it? Yeah.
And
then
Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, we had
know all about Hunter Renfrow now.
Yeah, dude. Real quick before we get out of here, I was like really hoping that they wouldn't call him down against the Colts, so the Colts would have a chance to score. But I mean, it was the right call. But I was like, God, man, not that we would have really had a shot anyway, but still would have been better than nothing. But that will do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in and listening, and thanks again for Dan for being our guest this week and helping us out with the Madden draft. Really excited about that one. Remember that you can follow us on Twitter at 3C Media Sports. You can like us on Facebook, 3C Media. You can go to our Twitch channel to watch us live every week, twitch.tv/CraigCrash. You can, thanks for everybody who has been in the chat today. Remember, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, 3C Media, as well as go to TikTok, 3C Media over there. And remember, you can listen every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course Podcast. You can find me at Crash Course FM. B. Scott, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Next week, we'll be previewing the NFL playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, we're talking about the Colts in the playoffs. We'll see. We know how it always is when they play Jacksonville on the road.
Haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a scary thought, but hopefully next week we're talking about the Colts in the playoffs as well as previewing who we think are going to ultimately, get to the Super Bowl this year. So it's going to be a lot of fun, very exciting, time. Really excited to get into it next week. But until then, have a good one, everybody.